Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Thursday lighting critique. We've got a handful of images to go through here. We also have a entire Nuke file that we're going to look at from Theo, and I'm actually going to talk about this second because I want to dedicate some time to the stills first, just because we have a few people here live with us, and I want to make sure I'm able to chat with them while they're still present. So we've got Clarissa and Ubed, so I do want to start with those two before moving into Stephanie's and the others as well. So Clarissa, I think this looks really great. The only two notes that I have, I would do another pass of making just the eyeballs a little bit darker, a little bit, just because I want them to. I basically want them to be almost if not the darkest part of the image, close to it, so that we can really read in there and really get and really read in on the eyes. Let's see. It's not much. It's a really, really minor adjustment, but just making that the black value of the eye just like very rich. And then the other thing that I would do is I love all these because they're kind of magical, these circles that are back there. I would just if you can, I would just soften the edge of them just a little bit. They're just like they're a little too perfect as circles. I would just soften them just a touch, and that's really the only two things that I would do with this. Unless anybody else has any thoughts, but I think it's looking really, really good. Do you have any questions about either of those?
When you mean soften the edge of the fairy lights, do you mean like do a blur because they're too hard edged, or that I should make the bokeh more circular?
It's more about the edge being a little blurred. Like if I was, it's basically like some of these. This edge isn't quite strong enough. Let's see. Let's jump it. Not 1%. That's not enough. Sorry. Like just kind of softening the edge of it a little bit through with a little bit of a blur. Just because like when we step back on them, it's basic. You know what? Actually, I take this back. Most of them are okay. It's like the 4 or 5 that are right in here. I would just kind of soften the edges of these. And probably this one over here to the left. Just soften those just a little bit, and I think we're good. And then one last thing. If you, like right here underneath the bunny, where the bunny kind of comes into contact with the ground, I think we can get a little bit more contact shadow between the actual bunny itself and the ground. So just kind of darken this area underneath there. Maybe not quite that dark, but something like that, so the bunny feels a little bit more grounded to this space. Sound good?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, Ubed, we've got you up next. All right. So I think overall this looks again, it looks really wonderful. I think that everything is kind of working together really well. The only thing I would try to do is try and get a little bit more rim light on this character. This actually plays along with what I was just seeing in the example that Beth gave on her very first assignment. So this is from Cinderella. I mean, clearly a very central focal point. We've got these dark values leading up to this light value back here. But the other thing that I wanted to point out that's similar to what you're dealing with is the fact that it actually makes zero sense, right? That the light would be super bright here, fade off all the way down here, and then all of a sudden get really bright on her face at the window, right? Like that doesn't make sense. But visually it looks right because her face being kind of lit along this edge kind of frames the shot and forces us to look. I always do this where I point with my hand. It forces us to look back this way. So what I think is that in yours, because we've got this character being centrally lit, this one kind of from screen right, this one from like screen left, and that's similar, just kind of rim it up on this side, and it'll focus us right here on the middle. And the other thing, I think you can push. Great job getting the darkness back there. I think we can push the brightness of this just a little bit more. But yeah, and then get that rim kind of look on that screen left character. I think brightening that up just a little bit would be good too. But yeah, it's really good. And then I think Kat may have pointed this out too. There's like a red line down here, right there. I would squash that out. You could even do it, and depending on how your final presentation of this is, like you could even just not that. You could even just do. There you go. Done. Note hit. But yeah, that's pretty much it. A little more rim, brighter light. Do you have any questions about that?
Yeah. No, not any questions.
Yeah, but it's real. Yeah. It's real. Like it's one of those things that when you see something, you're like, this looks great. Like you almost don't want to play with it too much because then you're just, you're potentially messing with it. But I think those last few tweaks should really help add that last bit of polish. It looks really, really good. You are very natural in Unreal, more so than I would say most other people I see. Most people kind of struggle with it. Every project that I've seen you with in Unreal, you've got an intuitive nature to it. So I think you found your tool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem, man. All right, I do. So to talk about bets a little bit more. Again, yes, I love. This is almost like a reverse of aerial perspective, where it gets darker as the foreground and we get up, but like it's really, really telling that story and really focusing our eye. Again, there's no question with the color scheme whether this is daytime or nighttime. I love the influence of this little bit of rim light on the edges of these as they're looking back into this. And also, this should be noted too, and this is a very classic early Disney design. My chair sounds very squeaky today. Sorry about that. Is that it a very early Disney design, and you can see this, and we talk about this in our book, and I talk about it in the lectures, is the abstract backgrounds, and here's a really good example of that, where the distant stuff loses detail a lot, and it really just comes down to very simple shapes, like the trees and stuff. But I like to think about that in terms of CG too, because when we are dealing with our layout and we're designing our scenes, oftentimes we kind of focus in on the details even when stuff is really far away, and at that distance it really just comes down to like the large scale shapes and what those are able to do. So I just always want to kind of pinpoint people on that. Also, it's kind of cool to see this path of this road leading back, and that kind of gets illuminated back there too. Yeah, all good stuff. I mean, if it was CG, I would say this line is a little bit hard on her, but it's not, so I won't say that. But yeah, really beautiful stuff. Great submission, great breakdown. And thank you for sharing that. It's really good. Okay, before hopping over into our Nuke file, I want to we got Stephanie here. We've got okay. Oh, I know. Oh man, I blew the lead on that. So we've got the update versus the previous, cleaning up the idings, darkening that bottom screen left. I think it's good. I think we're ready to clap. I will shut up for 5 whole seconds, and I will count. And if anybody has any notes. All right, I think we're good. You guys ready? All right, unmute yourselves. We're going to clap. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. All right. Woohoo. Beautiful. And I did want to point out that you've like the very first iteration until this one, just really, really great work, great improvements. Like you incrementally improved every single time. You overcame a really, really difficult situation with the file being lost, but it's like that's just kind of what the industry is sometimes. It's like being able to create beautiful images despite difficult circumstances, and I think you did a great job of that, so congratulations. It almost inspired me. I almost wanted to be like, I almost want to make it an assignment or a challenge at some point to make it where, we give you just like a plate of images and we're like, you can't re-render, you just got to comp this and make it look good. Because because you had the situation pop up because the file was deleted. But the situation does come up sometimes when you're like, I've had it where it's like, hey man, this shot takes 6 weeks to render. It's like, 300 hours a frame or something, and the fur artist doesn't have time to optimize, and the set artist doesn't either. So we kind of get one crack at this. So let's see what we can do. And you kind of are in these situations. So great job overall, and really, really beautifully done. Okay, so now I'm going to hop over into Nuke, and we've got this shot from Theo. I apologize ahead of time because for whatever reason, my color space on my monitor is just being, in my Nuke section, is just not functioning properly. So I'm going to be switching back and forth here between sRGB and the linear color space that he's working in. So this is more to look at the original renders, just so we can kind of see them. And thank you so much. Like you put in so much hard work in order to get this. So what he did was he broke out each individual layer, each individual kind of setup here, and we're able to see the different key light, the fill light, the rim light, and then the subsurface pass in the back. We've got diffuse values, and this really does help. It really does help me kind of get a better understanding of what's leading to this, and it allows us to do a little bit of a better breakdown. So a few things out of the gate. So all this does a good job. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things you really, really, really want to watch out for is the way that we have this set up is this beauty pass is coming in with some value back here, and it's great that we have the alpha channel here, but I really, really, really want that, whether it's in the camera or some sort of atmospheric or something, you don't want that in your beauty pass, because you can see it kind of taints the dark values, and it kind of can cause some issues, especially we will see it happen down here as we layer it over top of this background, because even if I take a black image and I put that back there, we're still going to get that blue color. So that's just going to be layered over top of everything. So, first thing that I want to do is I'll just invert the alpha. It's kind of a ghetto way of doing it, but it gets the job done. And then we should do that first. And then just take this down. So it's just black there. Make sure it doesn't get built up again. Okay. Now what I want to do is, now that we have that, I do want to talk about some of the individual layers. So the spec is looking good. It's a little bit uniform throughout. Like I said, it's bright to bright coming across here, and I noticed that right away. And it led me to look at this key light position. And I think a big issue that is going to cause some problems with this is key light is a little bit too frontal. And what we really need is to kick it around to the screen right side, because and this is going to be a little bit of a ghetto mock-up here. But what I really want to see is, I'm just put this edge a little bit, is I want to see this screen left side come down quite a bit. Let's see. Yeah. So that we're only kind of getting key coming in from the screen right side. Let me put this just a little bit more. Okay. And the same thing is true up here in the specularity. So instead of it being kind of all over, it just kind of comes in on this one side. We'll go ahead and do this here. And so this is, like I said, a little bit of a funky example. Let me go ahead and cheat it down here. So now we want more of the key light on the screen right side. Now, conversely, what we want from the key is for that to actually get brighter. So we want to push one side of it over the other. So it really does feel like it's coming in from that screen right side, because there's no indication in the shot that there's any light sources on the screen left side. So we really don't want, add this here, so we kind of push that up a little bit. So something more like that, just so there's light kind of coming in and kind of coming across his face, and giving us, because with a creepy character like this, you really want to play off the dark values a little bit. You want to minimize the amount of light to only the areas that it's really needed to see what we need to see. And let's go ahead and, actually I'll just push this up here instead of there being two of these. We'll just make one. So there's that, and then another element that I was noticing was within this, I think it was in the fill light. Kind of run through. Oh, this one also adds a little bit. Oof. Yeah, this fill light. By default, it's funny. It's actually, well, there's a few things about it that you want to change. Number one is, do you see how there's this hard line shadow right there? Fill lights aren't light sources generally. They are things like the sky, things like light bouncing off this wall in front of me and coming at me. They're not a direct light source, usually. Even if they are, they're very big, broad, soft ones. So what that means is that you're never really going to see, they're going to have shadow, but they're going to be soft shadow. They're going to be more like ambient shadow and less like a hard light shadow. So you definitely want to soften it. Number two, for some reason, the face is getting like twice as bright as the body, specifically the eyes. So anytime, and also they're getting like these very bright specular highlights, which is bad, because with your fill, with any individual light, anytime you're seeing it, it's the minimum amount of light that will be in that spot, because lighting is an additive process, right? You like put this, and then you add this on top, then you plus this on top, and you plus this on top, and so the like this is the darkest that the eye will ever get, and this is too bright even right now. So when we add even just like a little bit of value from some of these other lights, it'll just, let me go back to the lights. You know, we have got the key light adding. Actually, it's not really adding that much. It's just more like in the fills here. But even that, it's just too bright, so you want to kind of tone that down. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to mention was, let's go down here. The other thing that I wanted to mention was the background. So same deal with the background. We don't want to pre-bake in all of this like atmospheric and fall off. Because it gives us less wiggle room to play around. It's like it's great that we have this broken out from that. Actually, that's pretty good. So really, what we need is, actually we have everything we need right here. I didn't look at that closely enough beforehand. We just want to tone it down a little bit more in the foreground, I think. So it's not quite as. Actually, I might need to invert that. Yeah. So I want a little bit more darkening in the foreground, so it's not quite as much haze. The other thing I should mention too is that in this particular shot, because of the way that the character is and the way the background is, I see that you've got your Z to focus happening here, and I think that's great, but you actually don't even really need this. You could, because the background, the character, you don't see the feet contact with the background. The background's far enough behind the character. If you want to simplify it on yourself, I would usually just put the blur prior to any of this other stuff, and then just allow all of that to kind of go out of focus, because what that'll do is it'll allow us to maintain clean edges here on the character. Oh, the other thing about adding all of these over is you want to, and you want to do this each time, you want to add an unpremult before you do any color correction on all of these, because you can start to see it here. There's this like dark, this dark line, because simple explanation is, do you see how the alpha is semi-transparent in there? And if we're plussing all of these together, and we're plussing the alpha, plussing the alpha, plussing the alpha, what ends up happening is, let's see if we can go to the beginning here. So I go to the beginning, let me see if this actually, so if I look at the alpha value, if I'm looking down here in the screen right part of the viewer, you can see that alpha is 0.2. If I continue to add it up, It now goes up to like, oh shit, I should have kept track of my actual pixel I had. But now they're starting to get a little bit higher and a little bit higher because you're slowly kind of adding them together. And then the ultimate result is once they get layered over top of something else, you've got a thicker alpha grabbing just the black edge, and now it's causing a problem. So you just want to add unpre-malt before each grade, and then at the end here, you want to pre-malt that on top. So literally it would just be a matter of like just doing this each time. And then just a little workflow thing. Okay. And now you can see that it's actually gone now. All right, so we've got a clean edge. We've got a nice blur on the background. We've got more shaping on the character. One other thing that I really wanted to point out was, and we kind of talked about this previously, I think, is that on the background here, I really want to feel, like I don't feel like there's a light bulb there. And the reason why is there's just not like a good central bright point. So I'm just gonna add them here. Make this one a little bigger just for now. Always adjust it. And then I want to grade this up. This is one way to do it. You can do it a couple different ways. So like I want to see those like brighter, turn that down just a little bit more. Yeah, so I wanted to feel like there's an actual light bulb in there. And then, let's see. So that's the gist of what I want to do with the lighting. I think that would be a really good next step. The other thing that I want to do is add a little bit more warmth to this light coming in here. So something more like that, and then now that we added some saturation, we can also increase the amount of the light coming in. And then the way that we have this specular highlight, let's see where the specular go. We really want to play this up in some areas. So it's not quite tight enough in some of the areas that we need it to be, but overall, let's see. Actually, don't want to quite. Sorry, this is the part where I just start mumbling to myself. That's too much. Oh, weird. I guess it's a color space thing. Let me see if that actually is a problem when we go to the end. Yeah, it's a little too strong. It's funny. You know what? I think actually what I want to do is instead of decreasing it on this fill side, I think we just kind of want to cool it off. Too much. Still too bright. So yeah, so really what we want is just to really feel that specular value in there as opposed to just too much diffusion. Then I would brighten the eyes up a little bit. I think actually this key is a little bit too bright, but you can see kind of where we're going here with this. More key light from this side, really playing up the specular highlights, tightening those up. Last thing, I meant to mention this too. For your rim light, make sure it's actually, so what you want is you want it to kind of, even though it doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense, and actually what you really want in this shot is to, I would actually do 2 rim lights. I would do one on this side coming down him that is warm to match the light of the lanterns kind of coming in. And then I would put a cool rim light on this left side that just kind of gets the edges of him a little bit. That's more like the night sky a little bit. Let's see, I've lost track of all of you because I was on the other screen. Do you guys have any questions about that? Was there anything that wasn't clear? I know I'm using you all as a proxy for the artist here since Theo's not here. I think I may have bored you all to sleep. That happens. Sorry, guys.
No,
I'm
that
just
was good,
looking
Mike.
for
Whoa! Okay, you guys are great. You guys are amazing.
We're just all silent by your wisdom.
No, thanks. Yeah. So that's generally how I would approach this. Again, yeah, focusing on the key light, brightening up the background. Also, just like I think the sky itself, and we talked about. Oh, I think you were looking into this. I think the sky itself could probably come down in value. I'm totally messing up this comp. So that, and since it gets blurred out, it doesn't much matter. But I do want to, again, thank you for sending this along and organizing this so well before I messed it all up with my not so clean comp techniques. I swear when I work for realsies, I try to be a little cleaner than this. Maybe something more like that. Yeah, and then actually we could probably take down the overall background just a touch, maybe not that much. Just because again, want the character to kind of stand out overall. Actually, I want to do that before I make the lights brighter. Yeah. So yeah, I would just kind of do that and keep tweaking it. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions and anything else from you all before we break for the day.
Hi, Mike.
Hi. How's it going, man?
Hi. So, like, I have a question, like, about a lighting scenario that I'm currently working on.
Yeah.
So, like, do you have any tips when you are tackling, like, lighting in space or extraterrestrial lighting?
What was that what was your last sentence?
Yeah, space scenes.
Oh, like
something I'm looking towards, like, kind of interstellar kind of
you
scenarios.
know what? The only let's talk interstellar stuff. The only shots that I think it's around here that I really lit were like these from an Ice Age film, and what I would recommend, and this is kind of we actually had I had some issues with this, just because this was like the first real shot I ever lit on a film, I think. And I remember the first time I came in, I had lit the globe with like one, like this, because there is no kind of soft shadows in space, right? Like the sun just kind of like it's kind of a straight line. And they're like, no, we need to soften that. We in the dark side of the world, we definitely need to see that a little bit. And I was like, that's not really how space works. But so I think it's kind of like cartoony way and a cinematic way. The great thing about space is that like agencies like NASA are funded by the government, and so they kind of have to. Oh, somebody locked that up. And so that they kind of have to release everything. So so NASA has a. Did I?
Hey, Mike, I think you
Can you hear me?
So.
Whoa, what happened? Hold on. Wait. Can you guys hear me okay? Anyone? Oh man, how did I do that?